this is what we saw from the European perspective. We saw that the IMO tries to be in line with the Paris Agreement, but they don't manage to have ambitious targets.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to episode 225. If you are here for the first time and want to ensure that you do not miss out on anything, follow the Shipping Podcast on your podcast platform of choice and become part of the tribe that gets to listen to new episodes as soon as they are released. In this episode, you will listen to someone who chose to become part of the maritime world as a politician. I had the pleasure of speaking with Vera Tax, who is a member of the European Parliament and a member of the Committee on Transport and Tourism. And she has adopted our industry to her heart. She's got the bug now. I hope you will enjoy our conversation since Vera is involved in so many of the upcoming projects due to the Fit for 55 package. Please note that this interview was recorded the first week of October, so none of the latest tragedies are mentioned.
Every conversation matters.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Vera Tax, and I am from the Netherlands. I'm a member of European Parliament for the Social Democrats, and I work on two main topics, and that is transport, and on gender equality.
And what is your background? What did you do before you became a member of the European Parliament?
Before I became member of Parliament, I was for 16 years already a regional politician. So I worked in politics in my home country, in the Netherlands, and specifically in the region of Limburg and my hometown Venlo. It's in the south of the Netherlands. And I always try to explain it simply to people. I say, if you think all the containers go to Rotterdam, then they get on inland shipping or on a truck, and then they go to the border of the Netherlands. And that's, for instance, Venlo. It's 5 minutes from the German border. And then we make sure all the goods are distributed to the rest of Europe.
I see. So you have always been a politician. You want to change the world, or what is your drive?
My studies, I'm an art teacher. I'm a creative person. But then I went into politics, and then because I wanted to make a difference in my own hometown, and then I learned a lot more about politics and what makes the world go round. And in the end, I became part of the transportation sector and the maritime sector, because we all know that 90% of all the stuff we use goes around within the maritime sector. So that's why I want to be part of that and also try to make the world a little bit a better place.
So now you got the bug. Now you're part of our passion, I think.
Definitely, yes.
I met you in the European Parliament when you invited me to be there for a conversation, a discussion about gender equality in the maritime industry. And I think my listeners can listen to. We did record it. We did record the entire conversation, so people can listen to it if they want to. Why is it important for you with gender equality also in the maritime industry?
So gender equality in general is important to me as a person, because when I grew up in a family, like my grandparents already had this gas station. So we worked, and my grandmother worked in this company, and my mother worked in this company. All the women worked in this company. So I grew up in a gender equal environment. And then I did my studies, and in school, everybody says, this is, everybody has the same chances. Yes, I thought that's clear. So we don't have a problem. And then you come out of school, you have a job, then you want to become a mother, and then you are so lucky to become a mother. And then you feel, but the world is not ready for mothers who also want to work and raise their children and their family. And that felt so unfair to me and so unequal. And I almost, I got a burnout. I just could not fix it because I was this person that really felt it is equal. And then I'm in this world and I'm being confronted with that it is not equal and it is at the expense of women. So that was for me, okay, I'm also a positive person. So I thought, let's change that. So let's try also in politics to make a difference there, because I think people in general, men and women, have to make the choices that they want to make, but it has to be fair. And at the moment, there is no country in the world, not one, that is gender equal. Me, myself, I'm kind of jealous in how the way it is in the Scandinavian countries and in Iceland. And also there it's not gender equal, I know that. But it's better already than in the Netherlands, for instance, and a lot of other countries in the world. And yes, we need to change that. And then back to shipping. So then I'm totally enthusiastic about the transport sector and especially the maritime sector. And then I heard that, we know this is one of the biggest problem in the sector, that there is a lack of people working in the sector. And only 1.2% of women work in the maritime sector. And I think if we need a lot of more workers, then why shouldn't you use the other 50% that are available? And also, I really think because also the working environment is not always that well for men and women. So if we make it a better place for women, it's also a better place for men. And definitely also one of a even more economic thriving place, because we know societies and companies who have gender equality are also not only better societies and companies, but also companies that make more profit. So that's why.
I've heard you say that you were told that women are not interested in transport or maritime transport.
So one of my first meetings we had in the Transport Committee in the European Parliament, and then a male colleague of me told me, yeah, but the women in general are not interested in transportation. And I was in shock that a person really thought that. And so then I explained, well, you are wrong. And then he again told me, no, you are like an exemption. And I was, no, I'm not an exemption, because a lot of women really rely on transportation, even more than male a lot of times, because we have to transport children, or in general, women look more after the elderly people, and we use a lot of transportation, and therefore it's really important to look upon that perspective. What is needed in transportation for women as a worker and also as a user, but still a lot of people are not aware of that mobility is such a big part of our lives, and that for women mobility is different. Yeah.
So what do you do in that Transportation Committee of the European Parliament? Please explain a little bit to my listeners. What is the responsibility and what do you do there?
Yes. So in the European Parliament, we have a lot of topics that are really important for all our member states and the people living in Europe. And it's so much that we decided a long time ago to have like 20 committees, because it's too much to do everything at once. So then we have like little European parliaments on topics, and that's what the committees are. And they prepare the legislation. So as a member of the committee, you prepare upcoming new legislations or revisions of new legislations. And the job is to do it in a way that if we have a compromise within our committee, then also the plenary will say, yes, this is a good idea, let's do it this way, because you cannot discuss on all these topics in the plenary and decide upon it. So that's why most of the politics is being done in the committees we have in the European Union.
So we have to talk about Fit for 55, haven't we? The climate package for green transition in the European Union. How will that affect the maritime industry, do you think?
Yes, it's going to have a positive effect, I think. So also for people to explain what is 55. So we have the Green Deal in general. That's at the beginning of this mandate. We have this ambition in Europe to be zero emission as a continent in 2050. But to reach that goal, you already have to have goals set earlier. And that's the Fit for 55. So we say, by how do we reach 55 reduction of our emissions by 2030? So that's the Fit for 55 package. And this package has like almost 15 legislations that are pieces of this package. And there we make these new rules for everybody in Europe, which we are sure, if we implement those rules, that we receive our goals to have 55 reduction of emissions by 2030. So when on the maritime sector, you have, I think there are 4 different new policies or revised policies that are really interesting. First of all, it's the ETS, so the European trading system, so where you have to pay for your carbon, and their shipping is coming into that system. We already decided upon that, and that's kind of new, and has a really big impact on the shipping sector. Then we have the A4, we call it here. That's the legislation on the fuel infrastructure. So that we need, and that's not only on shipping, that's also on cars and every transportation, but that we need an infrastructure that is fit for purpose for the future. So this is about, especially on ports, what do we need in ports for our new energy transition? Then we have the other legislation, that's the Fuel EU Maritime. There I was one of the negotiators, and that's how do we make sure that each vessel is going to reduce its CO2 emissions. This is what we already decided upon this summer and will be implemented from January 2024. And then you have a lot of other legislations, for instance, the RED, the Renewal Energy Directive. Yeah, but let's not go further into detail.
Oh, there's so many details. I think that's one of the problems.
Yeah.
Do they support each other? I hope they do. I probably have thought that through as well. But every ship owner I talk to say, well, we need a level playing field. We need to have the same rules all over the world. And we can't really have that from day one, can we? I don't know. What is your view on that?
Yes, I totally agree. And also here in the European Parliament, we agree as a majority on that. But what has happened that when we had the Paris Agreement in the world, we did not include shipping, because then it was said, well, let's have an agreement. And for the shipping industry, we have the International Maritime Organization, this UN body. So they will make sure they will get in line as well with to not warm up more than 1.5 degrees. And this is what we saw from the European perspective. We saw that the IMO tries to be in line with the Paris Agreement, but they don't manage to have ambitious targets. So they talk about this. Last session, I was in London with the Environmental Committee of the International Maritime Organization. And yes, they made some progress. They made targets, but not clear targets. And this is why Europe said a few years ago, you know what, we really want to achieve this as a continent. So let's work on European legislation. Let's work on European targets. And we hope that by doing this, we can also make sure that the rest of the world will follow us. And we can do that because, of course, a lot of the 40% of shipping happens within the ports of the European Union. So we are a big deal on that. And also in this legislation, it also accounts for ships that are coming from outside the Union and want to embark in our ports. So we have this legislation that's for all the shipping companies within Europe, but also it accounts for 50% of the ships, the vessels that come from out of Europe. And it was one of the key points we had. We have to make sure that we get in line with our climate targets, but also maintain our level playing field from an economic perspective in this worldwide shipping sector. And I think we did achieve it. I think we really did, yes.
Yeah, because it's expensive to be the forerunners, of course. But I understand that there is a sort of support system within your package here for the people who are or the companies who are the forerunners, who are in the forefront and testing new things that we might be able to use, all of us, for the future.
Yes, because as you know, to buy a new vessel is like a really, really, really big investment. And at the moment, the companies are maybe not, before this legislation, companies were maybe not sure, what should I do? I don't know what's going to happen. But now we have all this legislation in place. It's clear what the goal is, where we want to go. And it's also neutral on the technologies. So it says that you have to reduce your emissions, but not how. That's something you can choose. This has also meant that now a lot of fuel producers are going to, scale up on their more sustainable fuels and also zero emission fuels. And a lot of new technologies like wind propulsion are really going to be invested in because this is a clear pathway. We need this transition and we're going to go there as Europe. And you see a lot of innovations. I think that's going the right direction. What's difficult is the investments. I hear a lot from big companies that they say, but we need really a lot of these fuels. So we need also the really big fuel producers to invest in these fuels, and they are lagging a little bit behind, and that's a pity.
Yeah, we just need to get them on track. I attended the Baltic Port Organization's annual meeting a couple of weeks ago. I was moderating that, and we all discussed the infrastructure of ports, because you can't have all the fuel in each and every port. I don't think that the ship owners even expect that. So there's going to be a little bit of a competition, I think, about that. Where will the alternative or the new fuel be available? And that has got to do with the infrastructure and the decisions and support. Where is it going to be available?
Yes. And therefore we have we call it here the TEN-T, so the European Transport Network. And there we see what are the core, you have the core network and the underlying network. So there is this, and also we have the European Port Strategy that's coming up. So there is this strategy and this vision of how do we make sure that these infrastructures are in the right place, because it would not be like logical to have like all hydrogen in one port and then a lot of ports it's not. So that is important, yes. But I truly believe that already there are like pilot projects going on where you, for instance, I know about it's called the Pioneer Project, and it's a project between the harbor of Rotterdam, Barcelona, but also inland waterways. And they are looking how you can have these green corridors and investing in those experiments of which fuels or which electricity we need to have in this infrastructure on ports and also inland ports, to make sure that we don't do things double or we have a lack of some fuels in the future in other regions.
And also, we both attended the European Shipping Summit a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you agree, that there is a little bit more of a positive tune in the song that we're all singing now. We're very close to the tipping point of thinking that we are on the right way and we are becoming more climate friendly and we are becoming more part of the transport system. What did you think after that summit?
Yeah, I agree. But I also have to be positive on, but you are working for much more longer than me in the maritime sector. This is already a sector that's like that thinks globally. So for them, Europe is like a region. And I like the way that people in the maritime sector are used to think globally and also think, if they have they are used that there's always like an interruption or a disruption of the change. So they are like really flexible on adapting to that. I think that's one of the main basics of this sector. And that's what I like about it and about the people who work in the sector. And yes, I agree. I really see this change along the 3-4 years now. I think it also has to do with that there are new policies. So people have to adapt. It's not, do you want to? No, you have to. I think that's a good thing. But also that in recent years, we see a lot of changes. Every person sees a lot of changes. in the world, climate changes. So we have droughts, we have wildfires, fish are dying. It's terrible. So people are really, as a person, also interested, motivated to make a difference there, because otherwise we will not have a global shipping sector in the future, because there's nothing to. I think that also sounds really depressing, but it's a good thing that people are really motivated to make a change, not because politicians say they have to do it, but because they really feel that is the right way to do it, and they convince each other, and that's really positive.
I also think that, the situation we are in right now with the war going on and everything else happening, I found it very encouraging that we are now looked upon as a strategic partner for the green transition. I mean, we can do so much from our industry. Maybe the ports can become, sort of an energy hub instead of sort of just being a shipping hub, if you understand what I mean. And also that the politicians are more open and willing to listen to us now, because there is so much transported on water that will be needed in case of a war or in case of everything that is happening.
Yeah.
We are being sort of more invited into the conversation, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, that's definitely true. And I think you have this famous saying, never waste a good crisis. And that's also always what you see when you have a big crisis. And this, I think the war in Ukraine is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's probably also not going to be like, there's not going to be a solution like in the really near future. But as you say, people realize that, first of all, being dependent on another country that's on energy is terrible, and also realize that's also the case then for all our transportation. That is one. And especially on the ports, there was like this big spotlight on the European ports, or even bigger, that what is happening there and why is it so important? The importance of ports is like, people in the maritime sector already know that, but like general people are not aware of it. And definitely because of all these crises, also the COVID crisis, people are more aware of that. And that has an advantage. As you say, the maritime industry is more invited at tables to talk about how can you be part of the solution, also for this energy transition. And that's also for one reason why, for instance, now we have this European port strategy on the table. This is why. And like a few years ago, nobody, we could maybe ask it from the transport committee, but everybody would say, why? We already have the European transport network. Why would we need another port strategy? And now it's on the table, and we are deciding upon it in a really short future, because yes, everybody sees how important this sector is, and especially the ports as a gateway to and from Europe. So yeah, that is definitely really, really positive.
Yeah, but that also leads me into a question to you. How do you view the maritime industry from the outside? I mean, I claim that we are not as good as we could be to sort of promote our industry, to show what a good image for young people, and also for politicians taking decision on our future, what we can contribute with, and how exciting it is to work in our industry and so on. How do you see that from almost the outside?
Yes, that's definitely true. I think, working here in the parliament, we are with 705 members of parliament, and we get a lot of, even also in the transport committee, for instance, people from the car manufacturers or farmers, they are organized in a way, if there's like something going on in European Parliament that maybe is not in their advantage, they are on top of everybody here. And yes, that's not, the shipping sector is maybe too polite to say it like that. So people in the shipping sector know how to reach me, but I'm already, one of the people in the sector knowing a lot about it. But it's important to also make sure that all the other members of parliament know how important the sector is. And then you need to not only target, the people who already work on these matters, but especially all the people who did not really work on these matters. And I think that's a difference. But at the same time, I sometimes also think you have a lot of lobbyists, also from the car industry. For me, that's also not a good example, because I as a person don't like how they do things. So I think the truth would be more in the middle. But also maybe it is because it's a global industry. So all these players, again, Europe is a region. So why would you invest a lot of time in a region when you are used to work on a global scale? But at the moment in this transition, I think it's really important that not only the specialists in the maritime sector and politics know what's happening, but that there would be a broader scope on that. And that's something definitely the industry could do like a positive job.
Yeah, that was also the reason why I started my podcast 8 years ago, because I wanted more people to know about the maritime industry and how fun it is to work in it. And I was rather fed up explaining that to all my friends who didn't know anything about it. At least now I can say, go and listen to the podcast.
Yeah. And you ask also on the work. So I have a lot of examples, especially on women then even if they want to apply for a school. I know the captain of an inland waterway ship, and she told me when she applied for the school, at the gate, they just told her, well, this is not for girls. Go polish your nails, maybe somewhere else, but we don't think this is a school for you. And then she went away. But a year later, she thought, well, this is what I want. So she went again. And I think this is like an example that still happens. And we need to make sure that this stops happening. And the only people who can change that are the people working in the sector, because we need everybody on board. And it is such a nice and important sector to work in. And also because I think, for instance, as I told you, I grew up at the border, not in front of the sea or a big harbor. It's just like a little river, the Maas. But people who are not live around an area where ports are can still be really enthusiastic about this sector. But then you have to, go out there and reach out to them. And I think that's also something important. Not, people in general who live near a port will definitely be interested. But what about all those people like more in the hinterland? I think they could be like really enthusiastic, but we have to reach out to them.
I totally agree. That's my problem. I usually tend to agree with my guest. Okay, thank you very much, Vera, for being part of my podcast. And thank you for taking the time to speak to me.
Lena, thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope to see you soon. I like your podcast a lot. Thank you so much.
Every conversation matters.
Thank you, Vera. I think it's important that we have these conversations. As you know, I believe that every conversation matters. Now I would like to turn to you as a listener. I would like to know why you listen to the Shipping Podcast and what content you are looking for. I have been doing this for 8+ years now, and maybe I'm getting old. But I want to hear what you think is essential that I bring up. Please send me your feedback to hello@shippingpodcast.com and let me know. It's now that I'm planning for the episodes to be released in the first quarter of next year. That's all for now. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a Shipping Podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.